What is up, you guys? Awesome Games 323 here again. I am super sick right now, and I should probably wait to make this video until I'm not sick, because I'm already late to the ball talking about this subject, but it's something that I am super interested in, and I'm gonna make this video anyway because, you know, this is my channel. I can do whatever I want, and I'm really excited about this thing. You probably already heard of it from everybody else, but I'm gonna make a video on it, and I'm just gonna stop talking now. Let's roll the intro. So Sega announced the other day that they're going to be making a mini version of their Sega Genesis console. This is very much like the Nintendo Classic or the Super Nintendo Classic or even the PlayStation Classic, but hopefully much better than the PlayStation Classic. More along the lines of a Super Nintendo Classic, because that was the cream of the crop. Sega announced that their new Sega Genesis Mini would be releasing in September of 2019, September 19th specifically, and it would include 40 legendary games. I am 21 years old at the time of this recording, anyway. So I was born pretty well after the Sega Genesis had lost most of its luster, at least in North America. So I never got to grow up with this console, but it has a lot of great games on it. I have a very small amount of games. Let's see, are they even up here? They're not. They're not even over there. I don't know where they are. Where's my Sega Genesis games? There are a lot of amazing games on the Sega Genesis. It was a powerhouse for its time. Now, it never really lived up to the Super Nintendo's reign on the video game market, but that wasn't due to its lack of ability. It was actually able to outperform the Super Nintendo, and if it needed to, and in some cases it did. But I was never able to grow up with this console. My cousin had a Super Nintendo from when he was younger, and he had given that to me, so I had a Super Nintendo. But nobody in my family had a Sega Genesis. It wasn't until 2015 that I even got a Sega Genesis. And the way that I got it, I'm not even going to lie to you guys. I found a Sega Genesis inside of a building that I was tearing down. And in 2015, I was tearing down a building in the very teeny tiny town of St. Paul, Arkansas. I found a Sega Model 2 that almost worked perfectly. The controller port was minorly glitched, but if you plugged it in, shoved a paperclip in there, and a rubber band to pull it backwards, it worked fine. That was my first experience with an actual Sega console. The Sega Genesis Mini is going to come with 40 games, which is more than the NES Classic, more than the SNES Classic, more than the PlayStation Classic. These are the most games that have been put into a classic console that I know of, at least, so far. I do not know what all 40 games will be, and I'm not here to speculate as to what they will be. As I said, I do not have a plethora of knowledge with the games on this console. Not to mention, we'll also get 2 wired controller pads, all the things necessary to plug the console into the wall. And this is my favorite part. We'll be able to play Sega Genesis games through HDMI on a modern day television. Another thing that I wanted to talk about in today's video comes from Nintendo. And it's specifically Nintendo Labo VR. Now, VR is not new. VR has been around a long time through various channels of. You can have VR on your cell phone, you can have VR on PlayStation Vibe or the Oculus Rift or things like that. But something that has been kind of rumored around for a while, at least I've seen it rumored around for a while, is VR on the Nintendo Switch, which makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because you have the Nintendo Switch with its roughly 6-inch screen that can play full-fledged games portably. Obviously, let's make a device to stick it to our face so that we can enjoy some awesome VR style games without having to be constricted to our game room, restricted to something like your cell phone, which just really doesn't have the power behind it. Even with the Samsung VR and its little controller, there's just a lot of things that you can't really do with a cell phone VR system. The Nintendo Switch, however, with its full motion Joy-Cons, which have great motion detection, awesome gyroscopes, it can tell almost every movement that you make. A system like this is a sure ringer to get some awesome VR game. I don't want to say Vive quality VR, but you can get pretty darn close with all the things that this little tiny console packs in. So Nintendo Labo VR has amazing potential. Everything that I've been seen in it, it's a stepping stone. I don't think this is where Nintendo Labo VR needs to end. I hope that this is not where Nintendo Labo VR does end. There is so much more possibilities that you can have with this. And now they've added on even more reason to buy the Labo VR kit. You can play a little bit of Super Mario Odyssey with it, and you can play the entire Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in this VR kit. Now, it's not going to be Skyrim VR or anything like that, where you physically take place of Link. You know, in Skyrim VR, you physically are the Dragonborn. You play the game as if you are actually in the game. Whereas with Legend of Zelda VR, you more play the camera. But the fact that Nintendo is adding VR support for two of their most iconic IPs, that puts great potential, at least in my head, for what Nintendo has planned in the future for Labo VR and just games in general. My only issue with Labo VR is that it appears that you have to pretty well hold the Switch to your head, as there's no strap or anything like that, which could probably be added pretty easily. It's not hard to add a strap to cardboard or anything. You just cut out a little slot and wrap yourself some elastic around your head. I'm super excited to see what they have done. I am so much more excited to see where Nintendo is going to go with this. Well, guys, that's pretty well all I wanted to talk about. Both of these stories are pretty old, considering how fast gaming news and stuff comes out and is covered. But I do really appreciate you guys watching this. If you liked this kind of video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and let me know if you want more of these kinds of videos, because this was a lot of fun to make. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome.